say that I think taking this initiative to Ireland now is just a fabulous opportunity for us. And when you think about it, it's a global competition, effectively, that showcases female entrepreneurship. It's staged on 6 continents, and we're now participating for the first time in the European heat. And by the time we finished, we had in excess of 250 people who wanted to come here this evening. It told us one thing, that we know next time we need a bigger venue, which is fabulous. And when you think about it, it's barely hit the ground here, and we have that level of interest. And it's just fabulous, and hopefully we'll bring home an award. I'm sure we will. And just to say that. Just in terms of my own speech to you, or my discussion with you really, around leveraging talent and diversity in the workplace, it's really not just a topic for business and for entrepreneurs. And I think that's what's lovely about the CWIA initiative and the Global Women's Forum, because actually diversity is important to the educational system, it's important to policy formulators, it's important to the cultural infrastructure of a country if you really want to thrive. Just, it's common sense. Leaving aside all the facts and statistics we have from research, garnering all the talent in your nation has a direct impact on your GDP. It's as simple as that. And it's just wonderful to be able to harness all of that in one initiative. It's such a rare thing to be able to do, because you very often have the opportunity to develop and engage and invest in business. But to be able to bring all of that together in such a symbiotic way is really fantastic. And I think we're really to be congratulated for that in particular. The hard evidence, I suppose, without spending too much time on it, because I really want to get into kind of an aspect of diversity, which is diversity in thinking, more so than anything really. But I think the hard evidence is worth just sharing for a moment. And it's backed by research as old as 2007. Catalyst, a major US research company, did some research back in 2007. But it was mirrored in research undertaken only last year by McKinsey's, who I know are also co-sponsors of this prestigious award. And what they found was, I'm just going to focus on the gender piece for a moment, they found that boards that have women on them have, and this is hard evidence now, this is research on Fortune 500 companies, 46% higher return on equity in their business, and 56% higher return on sales. And for me, I'm going to say something that I hope by the end, if it doesn't ring with you at the start of this discussion, it will at the end, which is that doesn't just go to gender, that goes to diversity in thinking, in talent, in terms of educational background, cultural background, being able to bring different thinkers to the table and have them assist in making your business better is where really that goes to the heart of. So that diversity agenda is much wider than just the gender issue. I think critically though, when you think about diversity in thought process, having that diversity of thought process just not at your board, but also in your management teams and in your product development and your risk control teams, to have that diversity, however big or small your company is, however big or small your policy development team is, if you're in government, is absolutely critical. But as leaders of our businesses, the critical thing for us is that we create a culture in our organisations that fosters freedom to think. It's critical that people can challenge in a constructive way and offer alternatives without the consequence of being excluded. And it's a critical skill for organisations, and in particular for leaders. Nancy Klein put it very well in her book. She said that even in a hierarchy, people can be equal as thinkers. And really, the best help that we as leaders can give to our people is to create the conditions where they can generate their own finest thinking. Whether they're working in an organisation such as a bank, or in a fabulous brand, an international brand such as Cartier, or in government, if you can create the conditions where people can think, they will bring to your table the very best from their field of endeavour. Whether they're developing new product, whether they're following that product to assess the risk, whether they're trying to look over the horizon and see what's coming next, if they have that ability to collaborate and think, they will bring the very best to your company. And really, for us as leaders, when your team are thinking around you, what you're hearing back, the quality of that thinking, is actually a reflection on you as much as it is on the team that you're listening to. It's really, really, it's at the heart of diversity and enabling business performance. So each of us have to ask ourselves, am I, as a business leader or as a participant on my team, creating the conditions in my field of endeavour at all levels of the hierarchy where I listen for that gem of an idea, or the person who's saying, I think we need to change this? And am I nurturing all of the talent to get the best from my team? And that's what keeps people in your organisation. That's what it's. A hygiene factor is income. It's a hygiene factor. The really critical thing to make people want to stay in your company is to be proud to be there and to be part of a team that are making a difference. In terms of, I mean, there's a lovely saying, if we don't use our talent, we'll lose our talent. But in terms of enhanced performance, that talent generation goes all the way through your society, whether it's in your education, which really is truly equal. I have to say, we're very involved in the educational sector, and you know, everybody's equal at exam time. But it's interesting, when you come into the world of business, you do get that pyramid effect that we all know about, and I'll talk to that in a moment. But if I can just reflect on the educational system ourselves, and maybe bring it back into our own organisation for a moment. We in AIB, we're trying to make considerable changes in our business and in our culture for reasons that I think are well discussed in every journal and every media story, in terms of making sure we contribute to the rebuilding of this country. But we're long-time supporters of the educational system ourselves. We started off in the CSR, the Corporate Social Responsibility, but we moved very quickly into supporting financial education in secondary schools. And we moved from that into supporting both on the ground and virtually third level colleges. We then discovered, as we were doing that being involved in the incubation units and the emerging sector technology in colleges was really critical. And actually we started to see business benefits there, because what we realised in terms of that diversity that we need to enhance performance was, as bankers, we have a traditional view that we must finance cash flow. But actually, we also realised that with the way technology and science and innovation is moving now, we need to understand, in the language of an entrepreneur, what kind of support they need. Clearly there's a need for us to be able to back successful businesses, but we need to be able to recognise talent early on as well. And what we started to do in terms of that diversity, we have an emerging sectors team where we have recruited in the recent past scientists, technology experts, and they're trying to help us understand, because really for entrepreneurs, and I know this will go to the heart of some of you out there running your own businesses, when you come into a bank with an idea and you don't have a domestic peer that they can compare you to, it's rather like rolling water up a hill. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we have people who can speak the language of an entrepreneur and can understand and assist in the growth where we can, and also be able to speak that language with entrepreneurs. Because it's really critical that you have that diversity of skills so that you can actually grow that side of your business. In terms of other engagements and other initiatives that we're taking, I'm going to do this very briefly, but I just think it might help. Some of you are entrepreneurs in small, medium-sized and very high-growth and internationally traded businesses. But I know we have some politicians, educators and other bankers here this evening. So just to share with you that some of our learning from the recent past and some of the initiatives that have been undertaken and championed, I'd have to say, by some fine women who have joined our organisation at a very senior level in HR and operations, and INED's on our board. In particular in relation to people, we've commenced an engagement and awareness process that links all the way from strategy down through understanding the role that you play on your team. But also we're hardwiring into our policies and our recruitment and talent management real diversity, and we're challenging ourselves around our atypical profile in terms of bringing that diverse thinking and diversity to the table. There are other initiatives we're taking around career management and performance management, But the whole bottom line focus of that is to bring that diversity of thinking and better capability into our teams. One final thought that I would like to leave you with in terms of leveraging talent and diversity in your business, however small or big, is that we women do play a unique role in terms of influencing decision making. And there is one particular aspect that I'd like to share with all of you in the audience, which is that we have to make sure that we're not allowing, either in ourselves or those who work with us, unconscious bias in our recruitment and our talent management. And you might very well challenge me and say, that's an oxymoron. How can you be conscious of unconscious bias? But actually, it is pretty straightforward. If you ask yourself the question, do I, when I am interviewing, recruiting, thinking how I'm going to put a team together that's going to develop something for my business? And there are two extremes here. Do I look for people who are like me all the time? Or do I go for people who aren't like me? Or do I actually focus on the very best of talent and thinking that I can bring into the team? Our own chief executive was talking to 5 senior ladies in the business here a couple of weeks ago, and he put it very well. He said, please make sure you don't pull the ladder up behind you. And I thought it was a great way of describing and making sure that you don't exclude or indeed put that unconscious bias into your thinking. In fact, I take it one step further and say not only do you leave the ladder down, but in terms of diverse thinking, forward, and by forward I mean in a good way, sort of outgoing people will step on the ladder themselves. But there are lots of people in our business, and women in particular aren't very good at making themselves visible, and men and women who are quiet thinkers don't necessarily step on that rung, and sometimes they need our assistance and our encouragement and our policies to engender them stepping on that ladder. So it's just a thought, especially when you're building an entrepreneurial company and you have a wonderful opportunity to shape your culture, to think about that and make sure neither you or those who are in your HR recruitment area are doing that. But I suppose the key message I would give you is this is not the role of your HR person. This is the role of every leader in a business. It really is. And very lastly, I was doing some research I'd just like to share with you before I close on Cartier for this evening. And there's a fascinating story there worth looking at about 3 men, three brothers I believe, who formed Cartier. And it was a lovely symbiotic story, which really they started off in their market looking at fashion and carving out a magnificent niche for themselves in high-end jewellery and wristwatches. And their target market was women. And I thought, isn't it wonderful to see them now, 32 years later, 32 years later, is it? Yes, 32 years later, fostering and engendering female talent in this way on a worldwide stage. It's just a lovely journey, and it's well worth looking at. I finished by asking those of you here who are considering going forward for this award to put the word consider at the back of your head and just go and do it. Just go and do it. It will be a wonderful experience. The second thing I would say to you is ask for help. Ask us for help if you want us to look at your business plan and your relationship managers. Ask 1,000 Seeds for help. Use your business contacts. People love to be asked for a view. And encourage others, because the last thing I'd say to you is success should never be relative. Success should be collaborative. And the more people that apply and compete for this, the better intrinsically you know you'll have to be. The more people who are in the race, the faster you have to run. So I wish you all the very best of luck, and I thank you very much for joining us here this evening.